Hey guys, welcome back to Star Wars Outer Rim. So this is going to be the last episode of this little series for the Coaster B diorama. And so on to just finishing out the coaster building, some details around some of the areas, and then covering up the depot building that's part of this scenario's map, or the map, part of the map basically. Okay. Right in front right now, I'm making the transfer track for the parking, which later was almost fruitless to do because I cover it in a hangar type building. So I don't know, I just kind of did it because I knew it was there, and I kind of just did it. It's kind of weird. So you can see that I already built basically the hangar, or this concrete structure. So this is like the main facility for Hondo's salvage yard, and it's kind of the main structure in his yard that would be in the toward the back of the yard, as you kind of snake through the garbage and the directed spaceships, and kind of just end up in the hangar. So I kind of figured it was a cool idea to have the roller coaster end up in the hangar. So I had some different roof ideas. I was going to use the actual hangar roof pieces, but I felt like that was too modern in our time. I wanted to make it more space agey or different type of feel of the structure, so I kind of went for my normal going for, what's it called, you go 45 degrees roof, and then it goes to I think a 25 degrees, I don't know exactly the degrees, and then it goes onto a straight, so it kind of makes it look like a barn, but it's a hangar. It is, yeah, it works this way. I think it works this way the best. Oh no, I don't, I just do normal, the half slope roof, so it's kind of like that. I don't know. I did some why am I blanking out word? These are just rocks, so just a background to kind of give this part of the map kind of completed. I didn't want to leave it empty. So, and I also didn't want to do custom rocks either, because if I did too many custom rocks, it kind of would look kind of different. I wanted to kind of mess around with terrain and kind of see what I can do with making them like pointy and kind of like Tatooine in a way. Oh, I just reminded myself. I have a name for the little town. I'm gonna call it Anchorhead. So I was looking up some names of cities on Tatooine, and there was a couple names that I liked, but I liked the Anchorhead. There's no images of Anchorhead. We don't know what it looks like. We just know that there's a city on Tatooine called Anchorhead. So I'm just going to go with it because I like how it sounds. And I think this would be the perfect place for Hondo to kind of make his salvage yard business a possibility. So it is Star Wars Outer Rim in the city or town of Anchorhead on Tatooine. So this is the full story. I think I'm happy with how this is all basically plans out, and then we go, well, this is basically the wrap up at the end of this series. So, on to just adding more Star Wars type details, pillars and columns, antennas and lights, and some random cloth that would be covering up the queue line, because I don't want to leave the guests kind of out in the Tatooine sun. That would be very bad, because again, Tatooine has two suns, so it's kind of bad for the guests. So I just want to make sure that they get some nice shade cover, and then I added this secondary little building in the spot, like it's like a little outpost, or maybe it's a storage shed for Hondo and his lot. The wall that is kind of encompassing his salvage yard is broken into key places, so like the exit of the ride leaves out of that exit of the wall, like it's broken because it's like not well kept up. I mean, again, Hondo probably is just pocketing the money whenever he makes a sale and just not repairing his yard's borders or something. He's a pirate, so he's just gonna continue to do that as Hondo would. So the station platform for the ride, because the ride has two stations, an exit platform and an entrance platform. So the entrance platform, I felt like I needed to make some type of structure to hold up the chain lift. Now I could have gone with this a couple different ways. The first way I would have gone with it was just do a generic the generic support structure like a normal Gerstlauer would have, but I felt like that wouldn't be Star Wars enough, so I decided to make some giant concrete sand structure. And this would be Hondo's maybe communication tower. Like, he built this to communicate whatever business people he's working with, or he's sending out a crew to go salvage a ship out in space or something. He just has this giant communication tower in his yard, and so I think it felt touching to have the coaster kind of go up it. And then you have little bits of mechanics of pipes and some antennas, some long distance dishes that would connect him to whatever he's trying to connect to through but not audio waves. No, not called audio waves. Well, signal waves. I don't remember. Oh gosh, I'm just like so bad with words right now. It's okay. So that's the idea, was the tower was going to be 4. I think this worked out with how this kind of connected more of his yard and how it all is very just Star Wars like, and how it kind of gives each purpose of building. See, I want to make sure that every building that I build has some type of backstory. A very small one. It doesn't have to be very extreme in its backstory. It can be very, very small. So you kind of, from a distance, know that building is a communication tower, or that building over there is a hangar, or that building over there is the cantina. So things like that. So I was focused on making sure that everything had that type of sense of purpose. And when it came to doing the actual station entrance here, station entrance, I just did a very simple canvas over it because I wanted to make it very basic. I didn't want to cover it. I wanted you guys to see the guests walk into the ride, get settled, and then the ride takes off. So I added some energy pylons maybe, or these energy containers that connect to said communication tower to give it some power and stuff like that. So it's kind of a connection between the two. Because I feel like when you cover up a station, you kind of lose some of the dynamics of the guests walking in and out and stuff like that. So I felt like that was a cool thing to do. So it was a very simple communication tower. Yeah, I light it up pretty well with some of the in-game lights. And also, I had to add a tower to the hangar to give it that Tatooine look. So it's the regular sandstone tower with that alien saucer thing on top. Because it looks like Tatooine. Because Tatooine has all these domes all over their towns and cities. And I think this works really well. So I felt like it was necessary to add another tower to this building too. And this one's going to be a little different. I wanted to change up how the top was going to feel like, and how to change, like, I think I gave it 2 saucers here. Yeah, I gave it 2 saucers at different sizes. It's kind of a stacked building, and then I add some antennas on top to give it that mechanical look and things like that. So I think this worked out really well. And then finishing some details on the hangar, I added some more pipes that kind of were built across it because Hondo was using these pipes for something. Maybe this is an energy post or something that would just go onto something. I think it goes into the ground, but I kind of felt like the roof was kind of empty without some details. So when roofs have no texture, they look kind of plain and blah. So I just put pipes on them sometimes to give them that much more character. So onto a prop that I needed to design. It was making a moisturage farmer on Tatooine because I felt like I didn't have that key little detail for my Tatooine map. So onto making an actual moisture farmer with all shapes only. Oh no, I used some pillars and other things, all vanilla pieces with the help of Construction Anarchy. So it was a very simple build. I use a marshmallow. I used a marshmallow in the middle there. That's pretty cool. And then I just kind of did different shapes to kind of give off some ridges, and then borders to kind of give it that off crop. And then I did some steampunk pipes with the color tan. Just kind of made those those are probably the radiators that collect the moisturage, and then that goes into the machine, and then that becomes your moisturage farm, and that becomes water, because that's what this machine does. It basically makes water on a desert planet. So it was a very simple machine. I plopped down like 4 or 5 around the map because it it would make sense to have a whole bunch of them because you're trying to make water for this little town of Anchorhead. So I think it worked out pretty well. It's a very tall prop actually. It's one of the it's okay. It's okay in its height. It's not like super tall, but I think it fits with the scale of the guests. Things like that. I always try to keep in mind when I'm building props at a person scale. I want to make sure that it's the same height, or not the same height, the same scale. So it's a challenge nonetheless that happen all the time. It's a constant struggle, but it's worth the struggle when everything looks proper. So on to basically planting it all over the place. I planted in a couple of key areas, some in the back, some in the corners, and then I covered up the depot with a sand dune with another moisture farm on top. And this area went back and forth with a couple different things. I was going to plan to put another coaster here, but I felt there was not enough space to put in a coaster, and I felt that was kind of cheesy and kind of wonky to do so. So I decided to go with something even more unique with Star Wars. So I went with a Sarlacc pit that kind of just sits here. It's kind of like your photo spot. That's what it is, because there's going to be a pathway that leads out over it. You can take a picture with your camera or something. So it's a photo spot. This wouldn't make sense to have a Sarlacc pit this close to town, but again, this is a theme park, so I'm gonna break the rules a little bit and add this Sarlacc pit. And it was just basic shapes, so half hemisphere and then some spheres for this tentacles, and then I kind of enclosed the pit with more sand and more shapes to kind of convenience. It's basically a pit. So this is a very last second thing. The other things that were supposed to be here, I was going to make a sand crawler, but the sand crawler got a little too big, and I didn't want it to basically tower over the ride, because the ride's highest point is the chain lift and the communications tower, and I felt like adding a sand crawler would kind of drag away from it. So it's not going to be part of this map. I might make a sand crawler later for my Star Wars collection on the workshop. I will probably do that later. But yeah, the sand crawler was not going to work. What you don't see here, you'll probably see later in the final tour of Anchorhead. I made a Jawa and a robot selling stand near this pit, just to kind of give more Star Wars characters some chance to be part of this map. Because I think I picked a pretty good chunk of characters to kind of be part of this little map, even though, yeah, no, I think I did a good choices in what I wanted in characters, things like that. I don't know if we see in this time lapse of me putting in the TIE Fighter, because I put in a TIE Fighter in the ground like I did the X-Wing, and that's toward the end of the ride in Hondo's salvage yard. I don't think you see it. Oh, there's the TIE Fighter right there. Yeah, I put a TIE Fighter in. That was from one of my old builds, and I kind of fixed up the wings to kind of help out in its angle. That worked out pretty well. And then finishing up with a typical Tatooine homestead building on top of sand dune right above the Sarlacc pit. So this is kind of resembling Anakin's home. Not Anakin's home, excuse me. No, Luke's home. No. Yeah, Anakin had a different home. He was on a different city in Tatooine. So, but this is more like Luke's home. So it's the dome with the two little cylinder outcrops that come out, and those are doors. It is a very basic building. Nothing too hard to do. It was just I needed something on top of this building, or on top of the sand dune, to kind of give it some character. Because it's always a challenge covering up the depot in these challenges. Always very, very challenging. But it's a welcome challenge, because it's a way to expand my techniques or expand my imagination, stuff like that. So, and also I've been using the yucca plant as a dead shrub. It's a really good idea to use that. Now on to, finally I had a name for the Cantina. It's a very basic name. It's probably not the best name I could have come up with, but I just called it the Twin Suns because there's twin suns on this planet, So I just kind of went for a very basic 2 cylinders as the suns, different color tones yellows, and then a sign that says Twin Suns. And the challenge was because I had made it a diagonal, it was kind of hard to kind of use the text pieces, so I just went for a very basic cube shape here. Kind of stepped it to give it that diagonal look in a way. I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I felt like it should have been filled in, because leaving that wall empty, I wasn't going to leave it empty. I needed to keep it. You needed to have something that kind of represent this is the cantina, and you walk in and you get your food and drinks or whatever you need from said cantina. So Twin Suns was the final name I decided on, and I'm okay with it. It was the last thing I wanted to wrap up on for this land, to kind of finish up and then send it out for Coaster B, because I know that's coming up in the next week or so at the time of this recording. So yeah, it's close, so I needed to wrap it up and get it finished. So that's Twin Suns. Very simple sign. Again, nothing like extremely crazy, but I'm happy with it. So this is going to wrap up with the time lapse, and then I'm going to show you a live tour of the land to show you what it is, this whole thing, and then the map is already on the workshop. So let's go on to the time lapse. Not the time lapse, the overview. Okay, let's go on to the tour of Anchorhead in my Star Wars Outer Rim diorama. Let's first show you Twin Suns, the main cantina for this little town. So this is like town center. I like this building a lot. It's really represents like Tatooine pretty well, and it's how it's designed. A little bit of also Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which is I'm okay with. Kind of very basic looking. It's not basic. It's very full of detail. Again, I like it. Then over here is it's a spaceship on top of a cargo platform, and inside is 2 motion simulators inside. And then here are a couple of my posters that are close up that my brother worked on. He's a really cool artist. He actually helped me out with making these signs and then adding the Arubesh text in them to make them more grounded in the Star Wars universe, because their language is Arubesh, some alien language. Here's the first version for the dive coaster, and everything was custom supported. Off screen, I did some of it off screen, and some of the supports again have re-rendered, and I didn't get rid of these ones, and I should right now, because these are... Sebastian keeps changing the code for said game, and it keeps changing where the supports are generating, and I have to now go in and make sure that these are gone. Okay, that looks better. So let's just follow the coaster, basically. So after the dive loop, yes, dive loop, because it goes into a dive loop. Goes over to this overbank turn, down over the guests, this little speed hill, into the Cobra roll, which is right next to my ATST prop that I made at least a month ago. And I just felt like I needed a symbol of the Empire here, kind of just, it's sitting here modern, like, well, look at the ride just broke down, how funny. I'm not going to say that word, that's really hard. It's patrolling, there we go, it's an easier word. It's patrolling said streets of Anchorhead, and here's some of the close-ups of Anchorhead. There's a little speeder over here, there's some graffiti, and more Empire propaganda signs, and then a moisture farmer, and the cloths and the wires going across the street kind of give it that kind of put together feel, like it just was just slapped together. People are just surviving in this town. And then after the Cobra roll, because let's get back to the coaster, we do the brake run. I made this like a fueling tower or something. I needed like some thing on it to give it some, I don't know, mechanical look. And then the coaster goes down in a helix, down in around this scrapped engine port of a spaceship. So it's just it's just a whole hodgepodge of pieces and things kind of piled into the sand. I think this looks really cool. It reminds me of like some of the junk in Mos Eisley's and stuff like that. And then over here was another spaceship part that kind of just sits in the ground, kind of half buried, and with the pieces kind of sitting around. And then after that, the coaster goes around and does another turn into a corkscrew right above the crashed X-wing. So I think this is cool to kind of add some spaceships from the Star Wars universe kind of crashed and broken apart, and I think this is really a nice detail. And then some of the broken pieces and stuff. And then in the center, this is I think this is a bathroom. Yes, this is a restroom, but it's like maybe a warehouse shed or something for Hondo and his crew, or something. Kind of just I need another Tatooine building to kind of pull things together. And then onto the TIE fighter that's crashed into the ground. It's not crashed, it's more like abandoned. So I had to fix the wings up, so I did the slash symbol from the text signs, or the text piece, and I just kind of lined it up against the TIE fighter's wings, like make it less boxy, because I did boxy on the centers here, or on the like support beams. So I made these more triangular. It actually worked out pretty well. And then some more piles of dirt and random stuff. And then there's a crane that supports a little engine that Hondo's moving or something, or the crew's moving it or something. It's like a little engine. I think it looks cool. And then we zoom out to the hangar building, the main hangar, little props and antennas, and a moisture farmer here. And then the main communications tower that Hondo owns right here, and then the station platform for the coaster. And then we venture off to cross over here to the Sarlacc pit, and then here's the little photo spot for it. That's really cool. And then I also added a vending machine. I keep forgetting names for some reason. Vending machine, some junk, and some things. I kind of really cool idea to kind of keep it out here. People need to go out here. This pathway kind of leads out to the rest of the park, if you want to think of it like that. It kind of just expands this way, which is a cool idea. And then a very typical Tatooine homestead. And then last but not least is the little Jawa that I worked on with an astromech. So I was trying to experiment on what little droid I can make. And I made a little astromech and some junk, and this Jawa is selling all this junk for you at a really good price. So come on down to this little guy's little shop and you can get some cool stuff. So this is basically all of Star Wars Outer Rim. Let's just pull back and see its full glory. I had a really fun time working on this diorama. There's a lot of details inside and little things hidden inside to kind of find. And yeah, I would love to do another Star Wars type of map, maybe, or something. Maybe a different planet to give it some... Well, just try something new instead of just doing the same stuff over and over again. So, yeah. This is on the workshop. Go check it out. And then stay tuned for the winner's announcement for the Coaster Beauty Diorama Challenge. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.